Okay, so go ahead and open up this Chiefs logo transparent, which is a PNG file. So I open it and then I download it, paying attention to where it goes. So for example, it's going to go on the desktop. I know that it is a PNG file, a portable network graphic, because of the file extension. Then I'm going to go ahead and click save. Okay, and that's all we need to do with that right now. So let's go back over that. In your module for the week, navigate to this Chiefs logo, transparent, download it to a location where you know where it goes. Pay attention to where it's being downloaded. And then in 30 seconds, go ahead and fire up Photoshop, but we're not going to open. We're going to go File to New, and then I would like for you to freeze. File New, and then freeze on this particular screen. We're going to talk about some basics. The last time we worked in Photoshop, we opened an image. There are two ways to start in Photoshop. You can open an image, or you can start with a new blank image. Now, by default, yours might say white on the right-hand side for background contents. This is the only thing, this is one of the things I would like for you to really pay attention to, is I choose transparent. So I always start with a transparent background instead of a white background. Why do you suppose that might be a good way to design with flexibility? Does anyone know why wouldn't I always just automatically start with a white background? Because we don't know that we need a white background. We may need a black background. We may need a gray background. We may need a transparent background to then put this graphic on lots of other backgrounds. So to maximize designing with flexibility, I always choose transparent. I have to make sure I'm in a certain color mode. You can choose RGB or CMYK. That's fine. If you have pixels selected, now I can go to Google and figure out how many pixels are in, or inches are in pixels and pixels to inches, etc. But I make it easy on myself because I obviously I don't remember off the top of my head. So I use my pull down and I change to inches here. And so now my inches are going to be 9, 9, and 12 inches. That's fine. You can make either, when we're just experimenting, you can either make a portrait or a landscape. When we're experimenting in class, I leave my resolution at 72. Can our computers or mobile devices see any higher than a 72 pixel per inch resolution? These are not 4K monitors, so we don't have to worry about that. If I was going to make a web graphic, why would I not want to choose 300 or above for resolution? What would that do to the size of the graphic I'm making for my web page? It would load way too slowly because it would be way too large. I use 300 when we're making these huge posters. So if you are experimenting or when we're just doing daily projects in here, you're going to want to keep your resolution at a trial rate, which is like 72 dots per inch. And then you can choose portrait or landscape. That's fine. Just make sure you have inches, because sometimes if people can't see their document, it's because they had pixels instead of inches, and it's like 1 pixel by 1 pixel. Like you just can't even physically see it. So make sure that you know how many inches just for our conversion process. And then I'm going to go ahead and click create. It's difficult to see on this screen, but this shows up in a checkerboard. That's how I can tell that it is a transparent logo. First things first, let's make sure that you have your layers panel selected. If you do not see a panel or any panel that you need, go up to the word window, and then you'll find and locate all of your panels under the window menu. Now we are going to make a custom brush of the logo. So for example, I am on direction number 2. I'm on direction number 2 where I'm going to place my image. We're going to do it a little differently. I'm going to go File, Place Embedded, File, Place Embedded. I'm going to navigate because I saved it on my computer. I'm going to click Desktop, scroll down, and I know it was saved as Chiefs logo. So I'm going to pop down to my C's. I'm going to find that Chiefs transparent logo and then click Place. Anytime you see this check mark, we have to commit the edit and then we're ready to start. I'm going to do that much again. File, Place Embedded, File, Place Embedded. I'm going to navigate to where I downloaded and saved that logo. Click Place. I'm going to make it a little larger just for purposes of demonstration. Reminder, anytime I see those white bounding boxes, that is a resize option. Anytime I see the option to check mark, Photoshop won't let me move on until I commit that transformation. Okay, so make sure we have, does everybody have, this is a big part of it, does everyone have, you can either open it or File, Place, Embed. Now what we're going to do, we're going to choose a selection tool. Reminder from the other time, there are 3 different categories of selection tool. The second tool down are all of your marquee tools. Okay, rectangular, elliptical, single row, single column. Then you have your lasso selection tools. And then mainly, which is where we live a lot of our time, is under object selection, quick selection, and magic wand. For this particular instance, we're going to go to our rectangular marquee tool. So go ahead and hover hold on the second tool down on the left-hand side, and then make a bounding box around your arrowhead. Make a bounding box. Click and drag to make a box around the arrowhead, and then freeze. So I went to my second tool down on the left-hand side, rectangular marquee, and I created a box around my overhead, and I freeze. If something happens and we got our box way off base, very easy to reset. Command D, deselects, and you start all over again, right? So I'm going to make a box around this arrowhead. Then now I'm going to go up to Edit and down to Define Brush Preset. I am actually on direction number 4, if you're following on the paper. Direction number 4 says up to Edit, down to Define Brush Preset. Now you'll know you're in the right spot because look at that tiny little thumbnail. It should be the arrowhead. So I name my brush, Chiefs Brush First Hour, and then I click OK. Okay, let's go through that again, all the way from the beginning. File, Place Embedded. I'm going to navigate to my desktop to go find the Chiefs logo that I downloaded. Click Place. I'm going to resize this. Hit my check mark to commit. Then I'm going to go to my marquee selection tool, make a box around my arrowhead. Once I have that box selected, I'll go up to Edit, down to Define Brush Preset. You'll know you're in the correct spot because you'll see the tiny little thumbnail of it, and you'll name that brush, and then click OK. So in the same way we did a brush, our custom brush, we can actually do a custom pattern also. So while we're here, and while I have a bounding box around my arrowhead with my marquee tool, I'm going to go ahead and go back up to Edit and down to Define Pattern next. And you can see that I have a pattern. So it picks up anything that is inside that rectangular marquee tool. Okay, now comes the fun part. Now comes the fun part. We've just opened any image. We've made a selection tool, a selection area, excuse me, with one of my selection tools. Then we've gone up to edit and we have defined both a brush and a pattern. So again, before 8:20 in the morning, you guys have downloaded fonts, you've activated fonts, you have created custom brushes, and you've created a custom pattern. Now, what does this look like? How do we use that? Okay, new info. Shortcut for the brush tool. You can click B on your keyboard. So I click B on my keyboard, or I can go down to the 8th tool on the left-hand side. My mouse is hovering over it now. Reminder, when I click on a tool on the left-hand side, the options for that tool pop up on the top. So I'm going to go to my brush tool, or I'm just going to click B on my keyboard. Notice how all of these options for this brush pop up on the very top. I use my pull down, and you may see it already populated. It populated my arrowhead. You may have to go to scroll to the bottom. You may see something that looks like this. Look, I have a lot. Okay, you may see something similar to just seeing folders. You can expand everything, and then there's a slider on the right-hand side. Slide down to where you have your particular brush, and then now click. Now, before I get started with that, everyone look at the bottom color on my screen. On my foreground color, on my options toolbar, my toolbar on the side, what is my color that would currently be, if I just did the brush right now, what color would it choose? It would choose white. So your brush and your text pick up by default your foreground color. So before, I should have had you guys change your foreground color before our brush. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my foreground color. Click once to a red. And now, bam, I'm going to have a red arrowhead because I have a red brush. If I click yellow, it's going to select yellow. So your brush will pick up whatever your foreground color is. Pro tip, to increase or decrease the size of your brush, there are two keys to the right of the P on your keyboard. They're called brackets. You can bracket to the right to increase the size of your brush. You can bracket to the left to decrease the size of your brush. So if I was going to kind of bleed, why does it only do it in the box? Let's see, let me kind of see. Okay, Command D. It thinks you want to put it in there. Yeah. So when you have that bounding box, actually that's really helpful to know. That could be really useful, is when you it keeps everything inside that bounding box. But now let's see, I'm going to go ahead and change my color back to a red, and I'm going to decrease. I'm going to come in and put a little logo in between here. So these are all my custom brushes. This is a really great way, like our Hauber kids or our Photog kids, or if you have your work, you can put a big old watermark that decreases the opacity. So in 1 minute, I'm going to show us how we can edit the details of this brush, which is direction number 9 if you are working or direction number 11 if you're working off of the handout. Okay, I'm going to take this time to roll around to make sure we're on the same page. I can help, yes. Oh, that's the font file. So download the other transparent PNG file.
There's something on the brush.
That's the logo file. Or sorry, the font file. Go back to the, or just go to the next file actually. Go to admin. So weird. Wait a second. Oh, we're on the wrong way. Scroll up to the top. There. June's logo. That was from. I got it too in a couple of places. Okay. Anyone else? Nice. Good. Anyone else? Good. Yay. Now, for some reason, this came in as an index file. So let's go up. I'm going to let's go up to image mode. And we're going to change this to RGB. Okay, now let's do your square just like you did. Oh, you're good. You got it. Now let's. Do you want to make it use some paper on paper also? Okay, good. Yes. Edit, define, brush, define pattern. So we're going to do a pattern here in a little while. There you go. And it's going to paint reminder whatever your foreground color is what it's going to paint. But we're going to edit the attributes of this brush because this is really an important concept because you can really take any brush and edit the backside, which is direction number 11 on our handout. So with your brush tool selected or by clicking B, make sure it's activated. We're going to go up this tiny little folder on the very top that says toggle the brush settings panel. Toggle the brush settings panel. And once I click on that toggle the brush settings panel, I'm going to pull my click and drag to fly it out a little further. And just like in the layer effects, if I click on the word shape dynamics, it will allow me to change the attributes. If I just click on the box, it only applies. So we want to make sure we get into a good habit of clicking on the word. Because watch what happens. For example, if I click on the word scattering, look, I can scatter like little fish, these logos. I can increase, I don't want to increase the count of that. That's really far. That's really. I can even go to noise. This is how I can clear up the noise. I can change the size and the shape of my brush. There it is, kind of getting a little thing. Awesome. Now watch what happens. I can spray these little. Now this is not super useful. It's usually useful like if you have bubbles. Let's say you're creating your own underwater, and this would obviously be used with bubbles. This isn't going to be used with a structured logo. I'm going to go ahead and undo that a little bit, but so just know that to get to this brush settings, I went to the very top little folder called Toggle Brush Settings on the very top, clicked once, and just like in our layer styles, we don't want to click the box. We want to get in the habit of clicking on the word, and then we can edit. Hi. Oh, hey.
She's good.
Is she okay? It's the same coat. Our 8-year-old had a meltdown because she told me her school uniform coat was smaller. And you guys, I was the worst mom. I was like, it's the same coat as the other coat we can't find. And then I was like, I love you. Have a good day. Like sending her off. But I'm like, it is literally the same coat. She just she just wants to melt down at the very moment we're trying to leave the house. All right, so brush settings. will allow us to change. Now, you can play around with what this brush settings really looks like and does when we do even on a general brush. You can pop up to brush settings, shape dynamics. You can see how you can put in, it looks more like a cloud instead of something that's smooth. This increases the jitter. I can even scatter. So you see how I can now make stars? I'm starting to make stars. Literally just by, or orbs, I guess I should say. Simply by using the regular brush, but coming to the brush settings, clicking on the word, and then editing. Okay, next thing we are going to experiment with, let's go ahead and make a new layer. So on your layers panel, so we're going to make a new layer. I'm going to make a new blank one for us to play around with. Okay, you can go up to layer, down to new layer to get a new layer. You can, on your layers panel, there's a tiny little box on the bottom right-hand corner with a plus sign and a square, and it's called create a new layer. Then I'm going to hide the layer that's underneath here just to get a blank slate for demo purposes. So I have created a new layer. Then I click the eyeball, which is a show hide. The layer doesn't go anywhere. The graphics aren't deleted. They're just hidden from my view. So now we're going to play around with a pattern and what we do with our pattern. A couple different things we can do. We're going to go to our paint bucket tool. Actually, we'll go up to edit. Let's do this instead. Edit to fill. Edit to fill. And when I have a contents option, I use my pull down and I'm going to use pattern. So instead of filling with a foreground color, which is typically what is done a lot of times, we're going to fill with a pattern. And then bam, I can use my pull down to find the custom pattern that I created. And that, watch, there's my custom pattern. I can come back and I can go edit, fill, custom pattern. I even have some others. I can go to my paint bucket. You know, you guys found this option actually. If I made a rectangular marquee just on the blank slate, I can then go to my paint bucket and choose pattern. And then I could, that's very large. So I could go to my pattern here and make a pattern inside there. I could even go to, if I wanted to change, I'm going to go back here a little bit. If I wanted to choose to do a fill pattern, edit, fill, I could choose pattern here and I could actually choose like 50%. And so now I have some, a pattern that is easier to see through. I can even still change it here under my blend mode. Bless you. Okay, a pattern is really great in a large area and or in a defined area. So you can define an area with a marquee tool and then edit, fill your pattern. I just wanted to show you that you can do anything really you can make anything a custom pattern or anything a custom brush. So for example, if I did File, Place Embedded, I am going to go down, I'll just find this Nemo. I've got Nemo here. I'm gonna make him a little smaller here. Commit my edit, go to my marquee tool, select, edit, define brush preset. Okay, and I can even go edit, define pattern. Click OK, Command D, new layer. I'm just gonna do this for demo purposes. Let's say I'm gonna have a big blue, make it a lot larger. I'm gonna bracket, and then bam, I have a little Nemo here. Or I can still do my paint bucket. Instead of foreground, choose pattern, use my pull down. It will have that pattern, and then there's a bunch of Nemos. So sometimes it's like, well, when would you really use this? I can even put him down here if I needed to. And then I have a graphic up top. There's all kinds of things you can do. Because now this is essentially, this pattern is inside this defined area. So whatever I would need to do for this graphic, which to use. Okay, so you guys learned a lot. We actually just went through that entire creating your own brush. Okay, creating your own brush. So what we're gonna do now, let's go ahead and take a brain break. Let's do a 2-minute brain break, and then we're gonna do some filtering, and then how we start like building. Okay, building a composite and a picture. So let's go ahead and take a 2-minute brain break.